Hi, this is Angela Hausman. Welcome to my session today. And I wanted you to see the beautiful background of Shenandoah University, where I have been lucky to be a professor for the last 2 years. I have been asked to talk to you today about digital marketing. I apologize that I am not able to be with you today to answer your questions. I'm actually on an airplane flying to meet a client in LA. However, if you will enter your questions in the chat, as soon as I have email access or internet access, I will answer those questions. So without further ado, let's get going. The agenda today is what is digital strategy, why you should invest in digital marketing, and then I will talk about some of the specific elements of digital strategy. We'll finish up by having a conversation about digital planning, digital marketing planning. So let's just jump into this. So the first question that I'd like to address is what is digital marketing? And again, I apologize if you have heard some of this stuff before, but it's important that we all start with the same understanding in order to make the rest of this presentation useful. So in order to understand digital marketing, it's really important that you understand what marketing is in the first place. And so marketing involves a whole lot more than just advertising and sales, which is what most people think of when they think about digital marketing or marketing in general. According to the American Marketing Association, marketing involves creating, communicating, distributing, and exchanging value between entities. Now, commonly the entities we're talking about are a business and its customers. However, this could be barter exchanges and other types of exchanges like Facebook Marketplace, where consumers share and sell products between each other as kind of a digital flea market or a digital garage sale. I want to introduce some of the key marketing concepts. Those are 1, research, 2, segmentation and positioning, 3, buyer behavior, 4, sustainable competitive advantage, and 5, planning, monitoring, and optimizing. So let's talk about each one of these. First, research. It's important that you understand your customers in a very deep way, not just their age, income, and education level. Especially in a digital world, we can learn a lot more about our customers and prospective customers. And it's important that we do so, that we understand what drives them, what types of communication they prefer, how they're related to one another, and how they view products that they purchase. It's also important that we understand our competition and the market in general, things like the technology that's used and the economics in the region where we distribute our products. Segmentation and positioning are related concepts, and they're based on the reality that not all customers are exactly the same. Some customers buy a product for one thing, and some customers buy a product for something entirely different. That means that they want different things from their product. So for instance, I like to do a lot of home remodeling, and I need to buy things like drills and saws and other materials to help me with my remodeling projects. However, I am not a professional contractor. I use these tools infrequently, and I don't need them to stand up to daily use over a number of years. It also means I'm not willing to spend top dollar to buy a contractor grade product. So recognizing the differences between me and a contractor is important if you manufacture tools that might be important for either one of us. So you segment your market and then you position your products for that particular type of customer, which primarily involves designing products that fit the needs of that particular segment, communicating the product features and benefits that are most important to that target segment, as well as pricing the product in a way that meets the needs of that particular segment. Buyer behavior is really this process that consumers go through in making a decision about purchasing products. There are two elements of this buyer behavior, and we're going to talk about both of them. But for right now, I really want to talk about the buyer behavior process. The process begins with a recognition that you have a gap. I am here and I would like to be at a higher level. So for instance, you wake up in the morning and you're probably hungry. That's a gap. You're not full and you would like to be full. So you go and search for products that will satisfy that gap or fill that gap. Now, in a situation where you're looking for food, you probably have some ideas of the types of products that will meet your needs because, frankly, you do this every day. So you use internal sources of information. You kind of run through this Rolodex in your head of products that meet your need. In a situation where you're buying a product that you're not as familiar with, or that may have changed since the last time you purchased that product, you may use external sources of information and actually search on the internet or through consumer reports or ask other people for recommendations. In the case of products that we consider to be much more important, mainly because they involve more risk, we'll spend a lot more time and cognitive effort on buying those products and researching those products. In the case of products that are less important, likely we will just use an emotional response to purchasing the product. So I feel like a bagel this morning is really a situation where I am using an emotional decision as opposed to running through a cognitive decision of, okay, how many calories, how many starches, how is this going to fit with the rest of my daily dietary consumption? Now, once I've identified here are the alternatives that are available, I evaluate the alternatives and then I make a decision. Once I make the purchase decision, I consume the product and then I form attitudes about the product, the most important of which is satisfaction. If this has been a satisfactory purchase, then I might go back and rebuy the product next time I recognize a gap. If it didn't satisfy me, then I will search out alternatives, and I may even evaluate the process that I use in coming up with this decision that did not work out for me. Sustainable competitive advantage refers to the advantage you have over your competition for some segment of the total market. Again, your segment that you're focusing on. Sustainable means that you can sustain this advantage over time. So examples of sustainable competitive advantage are high levels of customer satisfaction and good customer service, because those are hard for competitors to just wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to match that. Price, on the other hand, is not particularly sustainable unless you have a mechanism that allows you to produce and sell that product for a lower amount of money. Planning, monitoring, and optimizing reflects the notion that no one has a crystal ball. I've been doing this for at least the last 12 years. I have some good ideas of what will work. But when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, it's really a function of testing and monitoring. So, for instance, a headline or a subject line in an email, I'll run multiple tests to see which one performs best. And then I optimize by repeating what I learned from that first test. Now we can talk about what is digital marketing. And digital marketing is really just marketing that happens to take place on a digital device or on the internet. So why would you choose to use digital marketing? First of all, it's inexpensive, especially when you compare it with other forms of marketing. It's also highly effective in that you can target specific types of customers rather than reaching a broad band of customers who may not be in your target market. Digital marketing has an increasing impact on performance, as you can see from these statistics. Social media, for instance, impacts 71% of purchase decisions. And the ROI is very high. For instance, email marketing has a return on investment of 4,400%. And also then, digital marketing is measurable because people are taking an action on a device. Those actions can be captured and we can learn from them. So what are some of the elements of digital marketing? We have everything from website design, SEO, content marketing, all the way through analytics. The importance of these elements is that it's not like a Chinese menu where you pick one from column A and one from column B. You pretty much have to use all of these elements in an integrative fashion, especially when it comes to website design, SEO, and content marketing. You cannot split those up in any way, manner, shape, or form. Also, social media marketing is something that has a big impact these days on SEO. So you can't split that apart. So we're really going to talk about each of these individually, but at the same time, think about how I have to fit all of these pieces together in a cohesive fashion if I want to get results from my digital marketing strategy. Another thing I want to warn you about is that unlike some forms of traditional marketing, such as sending out a coupon in the mail or having a sale in your store, digital marketing rarely returns results immediately. Commonly, we expect that you have to run your digital marketing program for 6 months to a year before you start seeing the results of your actions. So trying to make quick changes based on a week's worth of results or a couple of weeks worth of results is kind of like a golfer who's trying to get the ball in the hole, and he's on the green and hitting back and forth over the hole, either hitting too hard or not hard enough. So give your digital marketing strategies a little bit of time before you make any drastic changes. Certainly you can make subtle changes like changing a headline or a subject line based on learning what works, but don't discard Twitter, let's say, because it didn't produce results in 2 weeks. Give it time. In terms of what creates success in digital marketing, like any marketing, these elements are almost exactly the same. Careful planning, providing a great user experience, instead of offering a nice storefront with open aisles and products arranged very neatly on shelves to be appealing. When we talk about a great user experience in digital marketing, we're talking about an intuitive website that's easy to navigate, that's attractive, that entices you to read the content, and we want to create value for the consumer in our digital marketing strategies. It is not all about me. It involves looking at how can I create value to my customer, and how can I communicate that value that I create. Monitoring and optimizing KPIs. KPIs stands for Key Performance Indicators. These are those metrics that directly or indirectly impact your performance. And we compare these with vanity metrics like number of followers or number of fans, which don't directly or indirectly contribute to performance as much as they might make you feel good. And if you work in marketing, it might help you to justify what you're doing to your bosses, but it doesn't ring the cash register. Branding and integration, as I mentioned, integration is critically important among these factors. And branding is also important, continuing the colors, the fonts, and images from one social platform, one digital effort to the next is critically important in achieving results. All right. So I promised that we would do this before. We talked about buyer behavior from the standpoint of the process that I go through in making a decision. This is built on the concept of the sales funnel, which some of you may have experienced already. The digital marketing funnel really looks at the communication and decision-making process that a consumer goes through. And it also, the thing I like about this specific image is that it suggests the type of tactics, the digital marketing tactics that might be particularly effective at a given stage. So we talk about exposure, or in marketing parlance, we talk about this as awareness. You cannot buy a product without knowing that the product exists, which is the fallacy in the old adage that if you build a better mousetrap, the world will be at a path to your door. It's hogwash, because unless they know about that better mousetrap and you convince them that it is a better mousetrap, they won't buy the mousetrap. So when we talk about exposure or awareness, we're talking about really that first step that I talked about in the customer decision-making process, where we are searching out alternatives, which also leads into the discovery phase, and the consideration phase, again, matches what we talked about in the consumer decision-making process. Then there's conversion, and the key element in conversion is creating landing pages and offers. We talk about things like a call to action, a CTA. In other words, something that entices a visitor to take an action. Again, I've been doing this for a long time. I do this with clients. I teach this to students. You would be amazed at how many people forget that you have to ask for an action. Anybody who's worked in sales knows you never leave a client's office or end a phone call with a prospective customer without asking for the sale. And that's true in digital marketing as well. So now let's start talking about some of the digital marketing strategies. Again, remembering that these strategies are interrelated. The first one I want to talk about is website design. And on an earlier slide, you probably saw a piece of information that said that 60+% of consumers don't trust a brand that doesn't have a website. So a website is an absolute must for any type of business, regardless of the type of business that you're in or the type of product that you sell, whether it's an e-commerce site where you sell product online, whether it's a service business like a restaurant where you're trying to attract customers to your physical location, whether it's a professional service like a physician's office. Everybody needs a website. Of course, they need different websites that are matched to what customers come to your website expecting. A website is critically important also for helping customers, potential customers, find you, because most purchase now starts with a search online. And that's where SEO comes in. And we'll talk about SEO in a few minutes. Website design has to fit with mobile devices, because increasingly users are on their mobile devices and start searches on their mobile devices. They spend more time on mobile devices. So it's a website in the old days would have a desktop version of the site and a mobile version of the site. Now that's considered to be inappropriate. Instead, you have one website that is now set so that it looks good on both mobile and desktop devices. And we talk about this in terms of mobile friendliness, and it's a SEO ranking factor. All right. Most websites will have some type of blog or other form of frequently updated content, such as news. Again, this is a critical factor for SEO. And you, in some way, want to promote your business on your website by addressing issues that brought the consumer to the website in the first place. So for instance, often someone just wants your address. Having that address easily found on the home page for your website is critical for the performance of that website. In other cases, it may be different types of information. For instance, a physician may want to ease the administrative demands of their business by allowing people to schedule appointments on their website, and also with heavy security, check test results and things like that from their website. All right, SEO, huge topic in digital marketing. SEO stands for search engine optimization. And the reason we care about search engine optimization is because most of the clicks to any website come from what we call organic search, which means that your link showed up when a user searched Google or Yahoo or another search engine, and they clicked on your link. Okay, that's organic traffic. And for almost any website out there, about 70% of your traffic will come through organic search. SEO determines how you rank in a search. The first 3 links, organic links that are shown on the page, get the lion's share of the clicks. Everything beyond those first 3 places on the first page gets some clicks. Once you get to the second and third pages, you're getting almost no clicks from having your links shown that far down in the search. So your goal is to try and rise to the top in that search to get more visitors to your website. And so SEO, there are a bunch of ranking factors that figure into the Google algorithm. And because Google represents about 90% of all online search, most of the other search engines use a similar ranking algorithm. No one knows exactly what's in this algorithm. Google does not publish it, but we can make some guesses. And there are companies who specialize in SEO who consistently run tests to determine what are the best ranking factors. So here are some of the key ranking factors in SEO. Content. Producing valuable content on a consistent basis is probably the single most important factor in terms of where your content ranks. Advice usually ranges from 1 to 2 blog posts a week or news articles per week, although companies that produce more content on a weekly basis do see much higher ROIs. So there is a correlation between the amount of content that you produce and conversion rate. But it's not just any content. It has to be valuable to readers. The keywords, which are really now key phrases that are used in that content, have to match the query that the user entered into the search engine. Using those keywords effectively, for instance, in your headline, in the body of the content, as well as in the images that are used within the content, have a big impact on where your content shows up, where your links show up, as well as how you rank for that particular piece of content. Another important ranking factor are backlinks. Backlinks come when another website, preferably a respected website, links to your content. This acts as kind of a social cue to tell Google, hey, this is good stuff. So it increases your rank based on who links to you and how many companies' websites link to your content. Other ranking factors include things like site speed, bounce rate, which reflects when visitors come to your site and then leave immediately without looking at anything else on your website. Again, a signal that your content isn't that good. Your visits from social media. So again, this integration between factors is important. So that's a little bit about SEO. I could spend 2 hours, and I do in my classes, on SEO. But that, I think, gives you an introduction to SEO. And then we can talk about content marketing. Again, your content is critically important for SEO. It's important because it's the tool that you use to convert visitors to your website. Your goal here is to drive visitors to your website, give them the information they need to make a decision, and then help them to consummate that buying decision, right? And so this kind of looks at the process of creating good content, starting with research. The more data, the more concrete information you provide in your content, the higher it's going to rank, the more traffic it's going to bring to your website, and the more backlinks you will get. You need to have a content strategy. We'll talk a little bit later about creating a content calendar to ensure that you meet that goal of publishing, whether it's once a week, twice a week, or as in my case, I publish generally 5 times a week. Then you have content creation, which involves actually writing the content, sourcing the images that you will use in your content, and using stock images is going to be easier to find but less effective than if you can create images or find images from reputable sources, of course, properly backlinked to that source. Those kinds of images are going to be much more effective. Obviously, you have a variety of different types of content that you can create. Everything from video to infographics to images to text. You can even embed a podcast within your content. And all of those are critically important for success in your content creation. And that variance of different types of content brings visitors back to your website time after time. In addition to creating content, you will curate content, which is finding content from other sources. Whether this means finding links to include in your content, which, just like including references in a research paper, suggests that you looked to the experts. You didn't just sit down and write some seat of the pants expose on a topic. In social media, content curation may mean sharing other people's content, other websites' content on your social platforms as a way of building this kind of tit-for-tat relationship where they will share your content. You also like to highlight your customers, and so curating content from your customers, especially if you operate in a business-to-business marketplace, is a critical content strategy. Then you distribute that content, and often you're looking for content that's doing multiple duties for you. So you create a blog post, and then you share that blog post across your social media. Maybe you upload a video to YouTube, and then you create a blog post around that video content. And then creating engagement from the content, which means that your target audience interacts with you on social media by liking and commenting, which amplifies your message so that it reaches some of their community, as well as commenting and sharing from your website onto an individual social media. Email marketing, as I said, incredibly successful strategy, up to 44%, 4,400% return on investment. The elements of success in email marketing is you have to have subscribers. So this is really a two-part strategy. You build a subscription base, and then you implement your email marketing by sending out email messages to that subscriber base. In the old days, you could buy subscribers. Now that is illegal in both the US and EU, as well as some other countries. So it's a no-no, and you have to focus on building your own subscriber list. A lead magnet is a great way of doing that. Offering some ebook or some other kind of access. Maybe it's a trial version of your product, something that entices people to give you their email address in exchange for something valuable that you're going to share with them. You can also use things like webinars. People who signed up for your webinar or an in-person event, now that we're finally back to being able to do in-person events, you can collect subscribers from attending or hosting those events. Once you have a subscriber list, you want to segment that list based on the characteristics of the subscribers. For instance, maybe they're interested in product A versus product B. Maybe they are a certain age group. Maybe you obtained the subscriber in one fashion or another, because that allows you to send highly targeted messages that resonate with that particular subscriber's interests. And as counterintuitive as it sounds, you want to clean that list periodically by getting rid of subscribers who don't open their emails over a long period of time. You want to optimize your send schedule. Maybe your subscribers are okay with you emailing them every day. Maybe they're only okay if you send them a message once a month, or every 2 weeks, or once a week. You have to play around with this to determine what is the optimal schedule for the content that you have and the subscribers that you have on your list. You'll notice if you're sending too frequently that your unsubscribes goes up and your open rates go down. So play around with this until you find an optimal schedule. Your subject line is critically important. You can play around with different subject lines and test out different versions to see what performs best. Again, every email should include a call to action. Tell them what you want them to do after reading the email. And then review the analytics so that you can optimize your performance. Social media marketing. There are something like 200 different social media platforms. You need to choose the couple that will work best for you. And how many you choose is really a function of how much bandwidth you have. If you have an entire social media department, then maybe you can have a bunch of different social media platforms that you use. If you have just one person, maybe you choose one or two. Maybe you start with one and add a couple more later on as you get more experience with social media. Social media or marketing automation allows you to kind of reduce the amount of time that it takes to produce and distribute content on your chosen social media platforms. Here I have some great information in terms of the different most popular platforms, their size, and the demographics associated with that particular social media platform. Recognize that once you decide to use a social media platform or a group of social media platforms, you must be consistent in sharing content on those platforms. So a platform like Facebook, for instance, you want to share once or twice every single day. Whereas Instagram, you may want to share a little bit more frequently. Twitter, you can share 5 or 6 times a day. And same with Pinterest. So the platforms that you choose are a function of your goal, where your target market hangs out, what your ability is to manage the content demands of that particular platform, and which are going to fit within the bandwidth that you have available. All right. In terms of analytics, critically important. Google Analytics is a free platform that gives you a plethora of information about everything happening on your website, from where people come from, where they go after they leave you, what pages they look at, where do they drop out in the conversion funnel. And so that is a critical resource for you to understand, build insights. It's not enough just to look at your data. You need to do this in a systematic way to build insights and then use these insights to optimize the performance of your digital marketing over time.